Welcome to our pod, and by that I mean on Wednesdays we read. I'm Hannah,
I'm Laura.
and we are two best friends who usually do a deep dive into a new book series one book at a time, except when it's TV
TV
Tuesday, and
Tuesday.
we're discussing a very strange show
I was
called
going to just like jump in and be like, welcome to the Amazing Digital Circus, and just start giving a really chaotic voice, but I
Start
I
like
thought it would
singing at
throw
the
you
top
off
of your
guard.
lungs, with some wild
Zooble and
characters.
Gangle and Kinger.
Oh, poor Gaggle.
Or
Because
Kinger.
I know Kinger. Oh, jeez, this is the worst.
We're
So
talking about the Amazing Digital Circus,
it's a
people.
guys. It is a Netflix show that originally the pilot episode premiered on a YouTube channel, and then Netflix picked it
Glitch.
up, and they said, "Look, this seems like a good thing to put our whole chest behind," and
And you
they
know what? It was a
did.
good call.
Well, it's also very funny because like the original pilot was in 2023,
Yeah. hmm
but they said like it didn't really enter production until 2024,
hmm
and like it wasn't fully released until like last week.
hmm
So this is a
Well, and
very,
even
yeah.
it got like a weird cult following online, it seems. I don't know
Yes.
a ton about this show beyond my coworker at the library recommended this to me a while ago, and I just recently saw it being advertised on Netflix because the final episode was being released. And
Mhm.
so then I started watching it. I was like, Hannah, I think we should watch this for Tuesday and Tuesday. It's a lot deeper than I thought. And it developed a cult following, and the final episode, so there was like a lot of fan theories and everything surrounding this show, and the final episode was released in theaters as
Oh, I
like
didn't
a
know that.
movie. I think it's
Well,
maybe
that's
the final two episodes
okay.
were released in theaters.
Well,
So
that's beautiful.
interesting, but
Well, and it's an interesting show because my we always say like, what was your experience with the show? And both of our experiences have been someone recommended it to us and
yeah.
we turned it on. My recommendation was Laura saying we could consider it for TV Tuesday. She did say like, if you're not feeling it, we could turn it off. And there was a string of text messages between us as of yesterday when I started watching the show, where I said, "Hey, what was that TV show I was supposed to watch called? Oh wait, I think I found it. Is that
No, this can't
right?"
be it.
And that was
This
like
seems a
Laura
little
was,
too weird. It can't
well,
be
it
it.
just was very bizarre until we actually got the prep because like Laura had kind of
Mhm.
given me a small snapshot of the premise. And when
Mhm.
I met Pomni, I was like, oh, okay, I did in fact have the right show.
So
So
essentially what it is a you're watching these people who enter into a virtual reality
mhm.
game of sorts, and they become trapped in it. And
Yes.
the person, and it's a circus, and the person who is leading this circus is not a person at all, but this really chaotic AI
AI.
named Kane, who is a
Mhm.
set of eyeballs inside of false teeth, those like chattering teeth. And
Very creepy imagery, honestly.
yes,
Like,
and Kane is just awful. I hated Kane so much. I couldn't stand him. Uh, and then we'll get there, but yeah, I was not a fan of Kane. But it's basically every day this AI puts these people who are trapped in this circus through these different trials of sorts. And I guess they're
well,
called
the AI sees
adventures,
them as little fun adventures that these people can
but they're
enjoy, but
honestly like torture for these
they
people.
are torture filled for these people who don't want to go on these adventures and are
And
not getting a voice in the
already
room.
dealing with a ton of like trauma from just the fact that they're trapped in this place
Yeah.
and don't really remember their names or much about their backstories, really. They remember a little bit, but not totally everything. So it's a really unique situation. And then they have this AI that's subjecting them to quote unquote fun adventures that are actually really emotionally taxing. And yeah, they're also at risk of just abstracting, where they just disappear from the simulation in general. So it's really complicated.
Yeah. And it's a wild show because it does take the overall tone of like late 90s video games when you're watching it. So like when they introduce you to the world, they're like, "Oh, you're in this small world," and like there's even this giant cursor moving around and being like, "Here's where the house is that you live in. Here's where this is." And then the rest of the world is a void, and you can't go out into the
hmm
void because you will become lost.
hmm
Um,
But it's
And
also very mysterious. Like the rules surrounding this place seem a little like they're not explained well, and you are getting certain images of things that are like, wait, is that supposed to be a clue of something? And
mhm,
it's all just a little like Kane is giving little glimpses of info or imagery and not a lot. So
yeah.
it's very confusing and mysterious and a little villainous in itself. So yeah, it's all odd.
And it's all surrounding this new character, Pomni, who enters the scene in the first episode. And she can't remember her real name. She said if she put on a headset, she mentions in passing, and all of a sudden she's there. And
And
it's
her avatar is like a little jester.
yes. Um, and she kind of gets introduced to this bunch of people who've all been there for a variety of time.
Hmm.
Um, but you find out that there are people who existed before who start to glitch, and they become these like deeper beings that like are angry or goes after people and are dangerous. And we
Hmm.
see that through one of the characters, abstracted as kind of it becomes a mindless
Abstraction.
monster.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what it's called when they kind of like
yeah.
just disappear from the
And
situation in general.
And so on Pomni's first day, she meets someone who's abstracted. She's attacked by one
Hmm.
of them. She has kind of a complicated relationship with Ragatha, who's this like kindly woman who's super optimistic and tries to
Yeah,
help in
so
every corner. And
there's these.
like,
Let's explain the different characters because
okay,
I think that that's interesting too. So Ragatha is a ragdoll
yeah,
avatar, and she
and
is this like very sensitive and, like you said, kindly woman who is very concerned about like being everyone's friend and making sure that everyone feels comfortable with her and likes her ideas
yes,
and things like that. She's a very easy character to love, honestly.
yes. Well, but she does have that like, and it's hard because, and I think her overall arc is learning what being a positive person means. And sometimes it means that other people will not accept your positivity, and you have to decide for yourself what you can do about that. Do you need to be a positive force for everyone, or can you take care of yourself? And I
It
do think
also
that that's
shows how
a
like how taxing it can be to
mhm.
be that person that's always trying to look out for the emotions of others and how it
Yes.
takes away from your own well-being. So she's a very interesting character, but I think Pomni is initially very much drawn to Ragatha, wants to pair up with Ragatha for trials and things. Trials. I keep calling them trials because this is like it's the
Because it
Scorch
feels
trials.
like a trial. Yeah.
This is like the Hunger Games, only it's Amazing Digital Circus. But they're actually fun adventures. Haha. And we also have Gangle, who is depicted as a like the comedy and
Ribbon.
tragedy
Yeah.
masks with a body of ribbons.
Yes.
And Gangle is essentially a depressed character who
Hmm.
struggles to maintain her emotions and dealing with her background and trying to decide what things actually make her happy
Yeah.
and kind of balancing depression and happiness. And I think that hers was maybe the most on the nose avatar.
Well, her comedy masks breaks in every single episode,
Hmm.
which is a very funny runner and also very sad, because there
Hmm.
is one episode where she like finally gets a mask that can show like very much her happiness or her joy, and because she's a depressed character, it's like you're right, it's on the nose of like literal masking. She's masking throughout the day and she's
Hmm.
just happy go lucky and totally fine. And then at one point she has to switch off to the crying mask because she that is how she actually feels, and she
Hmm.
needs to be herself for a little bit. And I do think that that is very on the nose, but also very apt and very tragic to watch,
Yeah.
especially with her complicated emotions towards the end of the season.
We also have Zubul, who is this. Um, I don't know if self-deprecating is the right way to, or depressed is the right way to describe Zubul, but they are. They're always referred to as with they them pronouns,
Yeah.
but they are their avatar is a figure that's like a bunch of different like toy parts put together, and they struggle a lot with their body image and the way that they actually are depicted as an avatar,
Hmm.
honestly, and also struggle a lot with the adventures more so than the other people for
Well,
sure.
they refuse to go on some of the adventures as
Hmm.
well.
And it's something that they're constantly at odds with Kane, the AI teeth disaster villain, who they are constantly giving pushback on why they shouldn't be doing these adventures and why they want to provide feedback, etc. And really have a hard time with their body and image and stuff too.
Which I
Um,
also thought was, I mean, and obviously we'll go into this, but I thought that that was some of the like that was some of the more interesting scenes when you have Zubul talking about the fact that they can change body pieces to like fit what they're feeling in the moment and what that means to them of how like their body hatred. And I also thought that that
mhm.
was an interesting discussion considering that they're non-binary and it is like a discussion of like what is self-expression and at what
Mhm.
point like do you need to go through that self-acceptance like just knowing you're non-binary or just accepting yourself doesn't mean that you're going to love all the little pieces of yourself and fighting
Yes.
over that is very interesting.
Yes. We also have Kinger,
Hmm.
who is a former computer engineer and one of the people who was like first in this
We
game.
find out throughout the series that he was in the he was one of the or wait, no we find out right away that he was one of the first in the
Yeah,
game.
and he's
uh
a chess piece, a king chess
yes.
piece, and he's wearing this robe. And most of the time, when he's depicted in the light, he doesn't remember things and is really forgetful and kind of a little erratic
Hmm.
himself and kind of says things that don't make sense and everything. But when he is in the dark, his senses kind of come back to him a little bit and he remembers things and becomes a little more useful. I shouldn't say useful, it sounds bad, but in terms of these really terrible
He
adventures,
has a
his
lot of like opening. He can see the system in a way that others can't quite often when he's in
yes,
the
but
dark.
it's also like his memories coming back to him allow him to like tap into the programming side more, and he recognized that he had some involvement with programming the Amazing
Hmm.
Digital Circus, and so he's able to tap into that more when he's in the dark. And so they find that out about him. And then there's also Bubble, which is this terrifying AI assistant to Kane that I hated.
It's like this like very insulting bubble that just pops up and insults everyone in the room and then
Mm,
leaves.
yes. And
Um,
then we also have Jax, who he is
he's a
this
bunny rabbit.
tall rabbit wearing pink overalls and considers himself to be the funny one and like the trickster of the group. But as we move throughout the series, we learn a lot of interesting things about Jax. And I have a lot of thoughts about
hmm
the way that they took things because I was a little surprised. I thought that things were going to go a certain direction. They went different directions. And I wasn't upset about it, but I have a lot of thoughts.
Yeah, I would agree with having a lot of thoughts and just like yeah, it's very interesting.
Hmm.
To learn more about the characters. And I do think Jax is one of the more interesting characters because I think people have a lot of complicating feelings about him. And I think you're supposed to at the end of it. So, um,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I don't know that and I think all of the characters are supposed to be very complicated and this is supposed to depict very complicated situations, but the pilot episode I can understand why it was something that really kind of developed a cult following because we basically are introduced to these characters and we realize that they're not able to leave and we think that they're trapped in that. And so we have this AI that's basically like, oh, well, you're here and we can make an exit, but it's never going to be finished. And we basically kind of wonder how they're going to get out. And that kind of sets the stage for what the series is supposed to become, in my mind, is what I thought it was supposed to become, how they will get out of this amazing digital circus.
I do think that that's kind of the initial step of the Amazing Digital Circus is like this mystery of why are they trapped and is there some kind of evil force keeping them in here and why? Because I do think that that's a
Hmm.
very dark look, but you kind of see that through Pomni, where in the first episode she sees these exit doors and she starts trying to run through them and she can't get to the other side. But like she sees these computers, and then at the end of the episode, we find out that we're in one of the computers, and it feels very apt and very interesting.
Hmm.
Um, and so I do
The
think
second
that that
episode,
is,
I think, is where it starts to get very deep
yes,
because we're introduced to this adventure where they're like very video game-esque. They're trying to like return stolen goods
hmm,
from these NPCs, and Pomni kind of interacts with this NPC and has like a moment with them where they learn that they aren't real
right,
and they don't matter to anything. And Pomni herself kind of develops this crisis of sorts, as in
yeah,
like, okay, does any of this matter? Do I matter? This person doesn't matter? And then she tries to convince this NPC named Gummy Goo to like, oh, you do matter and there's things for you. You can be happy and you can find meaning in life. All for that to kind of be the rug to kind of be pulled out from underneath them.
yeah. No, because Pomni still is kind of fighting for, and I think something that media is particularly interested in right now is like what makes someone worthwhile and what makes someone human, as we all become more digitalized in so many various
Hmm.
formats. I do think that that's a lot of this series was delving into what it takes to be human and who deserves humanity. Because Pomni in this like is talking to this NPC, and the NPC finds this like hall of different versions of himself as well as the other bandits. And there's this
Hmm.
very tragic moment where we've seen early on that he's doing this run for syrup to help the families in a small town, and they're like literally saving it from the,
Hmm.
or they're trying to get it back for this rich princess. So you're already sitting there like, are you guys on the right side of history? Because like he's trying to save his town,
Right.
um and he's trying to specifically save his mother. And when he finds this hall of NPCs, he realizes his mom's not there. So the fact, like, it is
Hmm.
strongly inferred that she does not actually exist. It's just this backstory that the
Yep.
NPC has. And that is deeply true. Like, I was sitting there, I was like, that's the saddest thing I think
Yeah.
I've ever heard. And Pomni is like, like,
This is where like the second episode here when we're dealing with this is where I started to be like, okay, what am I watching? Became incredibly sad.
yeah. And like at the end, like Pomni still thinks she can find some level of independence from the digital circus. She's like, why don't you come live with us? You are now human now. You're self-actualized. And at the end, Kane is like, no, he's not. Like, he'd be confusing. And like,
And just deletes him.
mm-hmm. And like he's done that before. He does that in
It's
like future
so
episodes
sad.
where he will just delete people at a moment's
Hmm.
notice because they do not matter to him. Um, and so
Well, and it
that's
makes them really have a hard time. The characters that we are dealing with, it makes them have a really hard time trusting and understanding Kane and also the adventures that they're put in, whether they should be dealing with the NPCs or whether they should treat them as human or not. And I think
right.
that that's an interesting concept too, because like you said, this is just all a question of like, what does it take to be human? So we have these people who are having existential crises, and then they're also kind of questioning what's human around them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that episode is also very sad because it ends with the person who abstracted in the previous episode a funeral for him.
Hmm.
And it's this overlying discussion of like Pomni's entering a scene that she doesn't fully understand because all of these people have pre-established relationships and weird friendships because they've all been stuck there for a while together and have
Hmm.
had to go on adventures together where they just like get tortured in their own way. But
Yep.
she is also this person who's kind of like stirring in new information, and she's kind of like still creating a little angst. And like literally in the season, Kinger tells her like, you're special, not many people were able to become accepted of like the situation or
That
fight with,
quickly. Yeah.
yeah. And so that's why we're kind of getting all of this through her eyes.
Hmm. Yeah, because she's the newest and is we're kind of like the new baby as well, trying to take in everything in the circus too.
But And then throughout the next like couple episodes, we kind of just get an arc of Cain being at his worst
Kane is so terrible.
and
Kane
putting
is awful.
well,
And
and
I think that
Cain's
that's interesting too, from the standpoint of like questioning humanity when we have this AI who cares so little about playing with people's emotions and lives. Like,
it was an interesting look at AI because obviously AI is on the mind nowadays, and it was the
mhm,
one thing that like I felt the least for Kane out of all of the characters because it was kind of like I don't really care. And like throughout these seasons, we're gonna be spoiling the rest of the season. So like buckle up, guys. If
mhm,
you haven't watched it, go watch the
sure.
entire thing. But like Kane's redemption arc towards the end, I was like, I didn't need this because like at the end of the
This is
day,
what I was hinting at the
yeah,
beginning. I hated Kane so much throughout this season. So then when we have a redemption arc for Kane, I'm like, I do not care about this. I
yeah,
wanted him to just be gone.
I didn't care either. Because again, like we're I mean, there's a lot of ramifications for AI, and Kane is specifically, we find out, created to kind of be a creative AI, which is also like a very
Hmm.
hot topic right now of
Yep.
like, for some reason, AI like was created and everyone was like, well, can't it do all of the art for people now? Now we don't need people to paint or we don't need people to write books. And it's a little ridiculous because the thing AI is best at is like a
Data.
data assessment. So like
Like,
you don't need it for uh creating a pretty little picture, you know.
yeah.
Um
Let's let people do the peopling, and
right.
AI can do the stuff like zeros and ones.
And so it is hard. It is a hard thing to jump on board with when Kane
Hmm.
is a creative AI. And we do find out, and I think this was very divisive in the like, I think a lot of people knew in the entire season, but from what I can see online, it's been a little bit divisive. Like everyone knew that these are either people trapped or it's like a brain scan. And it
Hmm.
very quickly gets taken care of in the last episode where they are mentioned to be brain scans. So they're not
Yep.
actually real people. They're not stuck. There's nowhere for them to go to anymore.
Yep.
Um, and Kane
And we
is
don't learn this until a lot later on.
no, no,
That's
no, no,
the
no.
last episode, isn't it?
It is the last episode. It's like at the beginning of the last episode where they kind
Hmm.
of just say like, "Hey, you guys are brain scans," and it's kind of told in passing, and they're all like, "Do you know what that means?" And I will admit, I've been sick. I was like, I think I know what that means, but no one said it out loud yet. Like,
So before we get there though, like we talked a little bit about like how we talked about the first two episodes. So like in the third episode, that's the episode where Zubul is dealing with Kane in like a therapy session
mhm,
and revealing all the trauma that they have with their body and why they don't want to take part in the adventures. I thought that was actually very interesting. And then we have the next episode, which is a I think this is the suggestion box. Oh no, the
yeah, this
suggestion
is
box
when the
is
suggestion box gets open for the first time, and they do the fast food restaurant.
the fast food restaurant, yeah. And then the episode after that is more suggestion box stuff that's just like
Yes.
tons and tons and tons of suggestion box stuff. And this kind of causes them to have some breaks amongst their group because certain people like certain adventures and others don't. And
Hmm.
some are disappointed when you have their suggestions not being received well. But we also, in this one, learn a lot more about their backgrounds.
Yeah.
And we have a bar scene in particular where we get a lot of their backstories. And I thought that that was a nice change of pace for the show because so much of it is just very loud and fast and a lot of brightness. So it was interesting to have them have like the bar episode where they're like just sitting there and kind of reminiscing on things before Kane comes in and is like, I'm bored. We're doing something else.
Well, and I think that it's that all leads back to like Kane is a creative AI who's looking at people's brain scans and being like, well, among all of you guys should enjoy this. And no one ends up enjoying what he thinks that they want. And
Hmm.
like,
And
it's,
so then he has like a breakdown too.
yeah, like he has a breakdown of like, well, you guys are doing the things like, you guys are so mean to me about my stuff. Why can't
Hmm.
you? And like, this was again, the thing that didn't work with me with AI is I don't really want an AI where it's like, I just want to be like the humans. Do you think I'm a human enough? And I'm like, I think
Hmm.
we're we're putting too much humanity into AI at that
Yes.
point because I'm not sure that AI cares about that. I think that's something
Mhm.
we want to see
AI
in
doesn't
any,
understand.
yeah.
And I think that that's what I took away most from Kane, where I was just like, Kane doesn't get it and doesn't seem to. I don't think, I believe Kane does get it even after redemption. It seems
Correct.
like it was too quick. But
Correct.
when Kane has that breakdown after the suggestion box, he tries to go and prepare another thing to try and win them back a really great idea and ends up giving them this adventure that's just like, you guys all have to just like go and take each other out with a bunch of guns.
Although they did
And
have
they have to
fun with
team
that.
up. They have to team up to do it.
Although
And
they did seem to have fun with that battle because it's
well, it's
laser
one of those
tag
things
in some
because
way. But
I hate to say that it's harmless, but they all know that nothing's going to happen to them. It's like
yeah.
non-lethal. They're not going to disappear from the game or anything like that. So they do kind of get into it almost like it's a paintball game or something.
Yeah.
And so it's very much like, oh, what are the consequences? We just lose. There's no real consequences because they're not in a real world situation. So they do split off into interesting teams and things start to get deep within the teams. But Kane, has a weird offshoot that he is going to decide who's going to be the favorite character amongst them all. And
Then
then
he
he
actually
has
lets
like another
democracy
breakdown.
happen.
He has another breakdown because he's like, I'm not the favorite character. And then he starts glitching. And they're like, why would you assume you were the favorite? It's so
Yeah.
stupid of you to assume that. Yeah. And then from there, it seems like from there to the end, Kane's arc is too much for me because we see Kane really enter a huge villain era where he starts to consider himself a god and
Hmm.
have huge amounts of control over everyone and manipulate them horribly into thinking that they
With the
might be able to
able
escape.
character.
Yes, that is another NPC
Oh, yeah.
and manipulates them horribly. And then they end up figuring out that they need to get rid of Kane and they end up being able to delete him. And then he is able to make his way back in a horrible redemption arc where he returns from the void and they accept him as one of their own. And I hated that, honestly. I thought it was too fast. I thought there was no real reason to redeem this character.
Yeah. It was interesting because I think, again, because like he's one arc of towards redemption. The other one is, of course, Jax. And I think the interesting pieces there are it feels like with Kane, they kind of mention in passing, like, well, it was a long uphill battle. But it's like, okay, but we didn't get to see that on paper or see
No,
like the complicated motivations of the characters like we did get to see with Jax because you
it's a
got
lot
to,
easier to empathize with Jax when we know that this is a person who is supposedly trapped here and entered this for reasons and has a complicated backstory.
well, also because Jax does have to atone for some of his sins when it comes to Gangle, because we do
Hmm.
find out throughout the series that Jax has specifically identified Gangle as someone to bully and someone to
Hmm.
harm at every single step. And so,
Jax is a very difficult character for me. I
mhm,
did not like Jax for quite a long time, honestly. And I think that Jax is the character that grew on me. And I wouldn't even say that I liked Jax at the end, just that I had more empathy
yeah.
for the character at the end.
He's definitely the character that is I thought was very human because like we find
Yes.
out
I
through
think it was a really well done
yes
arc for this character, but I would not say it's one that I liked in particular.
because and he is also very much the epitome of like hurt people because you we
Yeah,
find out later in the series that Jax had a father who was very
it's very absent.
authoritarian, very absent, but also very much like you need to be masculine, you cannot be feminine. And we do find out through hints that like he is more effeminate. He does enjoy wearing like the women's clothes that we saw him in the
Hmm.
series and things like that.
Yeah, and there's
And so,
moments where, so beyond Jax just being overly like rude and making jokes at the expense of others, Jax also has somewhat self-deprecating humor and
mhm,
at times is put into like a maid's outfit and stuff like that, which we're supposed to assume that Jax hates or whatever.
mhm.
And a lot of these things, Hannah, gave me I thought we were going to find out that Jax was like an incel, honestly.
Hmm.
Like
Yeah.
I was predicting something like that was going to be a reveal
Right.
with Jax, that this was some kind of incel situation because that type of behavior is there with the treatment of others and also the way that Jax spoke about himself. But when we get the reveal later that, Jax had a very complicated relationship with his parents and that his relationship with masculinity was really different and that probably identifies more feminine.
Yeah.
I think that that was an interesting
Well, and
way
also
to
he
depict
was
him.
unhoused at some point. Like he was not
Yes.
able to live in his own home. There was an accident involving his mother where he doesn't not remember the outcome to it. And it's like this very awful backstory that does not excuse the behavior of what he
Hmm.
did to Gangle because, and this is where like I prefer Jax's overarching arc versus Kane's
Hmm.
because for Jax, we got to see Gangle fight over her own feelings about him and have discussions where she was like, I just don't know how to feel. This person tortured me. And Zubul says, that's okay. You don't have to
Hmm.
feel sad or you don't have to 100% feel like he wasn't a bad person. You
Right.
get to have complicated emotions about this human. And I think that shows that his arc was a little bit more earned. Where, like,
Hmm.
for Kane, I was like, I understand you told us that he fixed it. And I think you did the right thing with
I
Kane's
just don't
redemption.
care.
I know Kane's redemption arc was finding out who they were outside of the world and showing it to
Hmm.
them. I think that is a very good way to atone
Hmm.
for your personal sins with these
Sure.
people, but it does not mean that you earned forgiveness or
No.
me caring about you in this overall
It
series.
seems like one of the, yeah, and that was what it was for me, where I was like, people were happy about how Kane's arc ended up, and I'm like, you were, because I think that he needs to have done a lot more after torturing these people for an unknown amount of time with these
Yeah.
horrible adventures to just then like show them information that he pulled from social media about like, you guys are actually doing well out in the real world, so don't worry. And then they're like, oh, good. I'm like,
Oh, good. Thank you.
no,
And I appreciate that he tried to like open it up. Like
it's a
there are
step,
ways they
but
told
there's a
us,
lot
but
more.
like we didn't get to see it on the page. And I get it. Like
Hmm.
it's a limited series, and
Yes.
like we do hear that like oh Kane opens up other worlds for us. Kane is working on building a world with us instead of one for
Hmm.
us. And I think that that's all good. It just didn't make
There's
me
a little more
care
free
about him.
will at the end of the
Yeah.
series and everything, but yeah, you don't care about Kane. You still think he's
At least I
awful.
didn't. Like I was just like, okay, cool, I
I
guess.
didn't
Like,
either.
yeah.
I know there's some people who really like Kane. I thought that this was a terrible character, and I could not stand him.
I mean, I think he did
I
his
shouldn't say he was a
job.
terrible character.
Yeah, he was a
I
very
just think
interesting
that he
character,
was
but like
a very villainous character from my
people
POV.
who and also again, like I really don't care. I at this point in my life, I do not care about giving people with AI or like giving AI personality traits that want to be human because I actually don't believe that's true. And I think it is
Yeah.
weird to put that energy into anything right now. I think it is a very human reaction to want to take the things that we know about and humanize
Hmm.
them. Think about so many things of like people finding out that their dogs hate hugs and how tragic that was for a lot of people. And it's like, yeah, like
Yeah. We want to
dogs aren't
personify
people.
everything now,
Yeah.
I think, and we just assume that everything, like, I think with AI, a lot of people are just like, it'll be like Wall-E. It's
Well,
like,
there's
no.
like people literally dating AI things. So
Hmm.
like there are rumors that Zach Braff is doing it out in the real
What?
world. Yeah. Like, a lot of my like or a lot of my like comedy podcasts I listen to are talking about it. So I've heard it from multiple people in LA from
Like
like
the
random
guy from Scrubs.
yeah, that he has an AI girlfriend. So like
Hannah, no.
I don't know if it's true or not. You cannot sue me for it because I'm not saying that that's happening. But like there is a weird need to personify AI and I don't want to do that because AI is not good. Like
No.
um
The thing is, when it takes away human dignity, is where I feel like we can't assign human feelings to it when it's taking away our
right.
creativity and dignity and work. I can't get on board with it.
I can't get on board with it. No.
I'm just not a
S-
fan of AI ever.
But like,
And stop making the
but
flipping flyers, people. They look awful.
oh, yeah, they do. I always say that because I have to train people on what to do, and I'm always like, AI is a step point 5. Like, if you're
Mhm.
using it, you have to put in the appropriate amount of information for it to output something, and then you need to double check what it output because like AI misses so many things.
I
But like,
recently, so the other thing too, this is maybe me going off on a different tangent, but
we can cut it out.
recently there's been like book drama about uh, people wanting authors to use easier words because the words are too complicated and they can't understand them. And to that, I'm like, that's the whole point of reading, to learn new words. That's how I've learned a lot of words is
I
through
know.
reading. I don't know what people are expecting when they read a book that they can't
Also, like
look up a
context
word and what it
clues.
means. And there are context clues that you can take from the
Yeah.
setting and the paragraph. And
Also,
yeah,
most people are reading on Kindles, and if you just highlight the word, it'll tell you what it means. Like you're talking
yeah.
about pretty easy steps to
But it's concerning from the
inculcate into
standpoint
your
of like
life.
people, we're getting to the point now where it's becoming very Brave New World-ish, where we're like, I don't want to have to think. I want somebody to give me an easier word. I want somebody to just write a book for me. And I also think it's weirdly, people are using like ableism as
A
a
reason,
a
yeah.
reason for these types of things, and they're like, it's ableist to suggest that you can't write easier words in your books, or it's ableist to say that we can't use AI to write books. And I'm like, it's not
It's
though.
not though.
Do you know what ableism is? Like, this is not the same thing. Ableism would be like, we're not going to allow like accessibility options into our
Right.
building. Like,
Oh,
I'm not saying
jeez.
that ableism doesn't exist within the book world. I'm just saying it's interesting from the standpoint of like using ableism as an excuse to use AI all the time is getting really annoying. And I think it, like I said, it's becoming very Brave New World of us to be requesting that, we want things to be so easy for us that we don't have to think, that we don't even have to know what this word means because it's easier. We need easier words. I'm like, oh, what's
I
happening?
know.
What's
It's
going on? What's
what are we
happening?
doing? Um,
And
we're
I'm
gonna
supposed to
listen
be
back.
attracted to that?
We're gonna listen to so many episodes back in a year or two, and we're gonna be like, boy, you could really tell when that SNL skit came out because it just infiltrated all of Hannah and Laura's episodes.
Man of the year.
What
What
are we doing? What's going
are we doing?
on?
What's going on?
Um, I'm supposed to be, they're taking the
You're supposed to be
LGBT.
attracted to that?
Um, but yeah, you and I both kind of agree on the Kane front. And
Yeah.
I think we both pretty much agree on the Jax front too, of
I
like
think
this is
we're
a
very
very
much on the same
dynamic
page with things.
character.
And I hearing you talk about some of these things has made me smile because I'm like, yep, this is exactly the type of take that I wanted to hear from you on this, that we're we're having like kind of the same viewpoints on these things. When you saw the reveal of Jax at the end, that Jax is likely some sort of trans femme.
Yeah.
Were you surprised by that? Because I was, like I said, I was thinking maybe this was going to be an incel situation just by the behavior that was exhibited earlier in the show and how manipulative and abusive, really, Jax was towards other characters.
I hadn't really thought too much about Jax in the outside world. Like, not in a mean way, but Jax was the one
Hmm.
who was the most okay with the world that they were in. And he seemed to enjoy it the most.
Seemingly,
Like, yeah,
seemingly.
seemingly, he was the most okay with living in it. You did hear that he had friendships before and they went away. So I think I
Hmm.
was more willing to be like, I don't really know what his outside world is, but like he has obviously made connections before and it's burned him to the point where now he doesn't make any connect. Because like it was always shocking to me when like Ragatha and Jax would be like, well, we're not really friends because I was like, well, in the first episode, you guys are walking everywhere together and you're doing all these things together. And I do understand that it is a time and a place of like they have someone new. They're both interested in this
Hmm.
new person because there's no one else around them. But it made me understand a little bit more like this is a very complex character. And like I also kind of understand. not understood. I don't think I would be like this if I was stuck in a video game. But
Hmm.
it was an interesting viewpoint to have someone there who was like, well, none of this is real, so it doesn't matter. And like,
Hmm.
I was more interested
And
in
so
like,
then I'm leaning towards being a chaos agent more than anything
yeah,
because what does it matter?
yeah. And that was more what I was reading into him. So I don't think I had thought much about his outside world persona. So when I found, I was shocked by the fact that I always use queer as kind of like an overarching thing because it
Sure.
can be, part of the queer community. But like him being queer was like shocking but nice, like
Yeah.
it was very nice to hear because it was very realistic to find out like, oh, his mom was not
Hmm.
supportive and laughed
Right.
at him. And then like it's a very tragic story where he's like, and then she went to hug me and I just had this very emotional outburst and I pushed her. And I think I was watching it more through the lens by that episode of like what it takes to be abstracted because I had already had the theory at the beginning that it was loneliness and depression and self-isolation that really got you there. And
There was a
so,
Redditor that said that whenever the characters like deny being vulnerable with others, they
mhm,
start to struggle more with like abstracting. And
yes.
I thought that that was very interesting because you do have the characters who start to open up, and then once they develop connections, it seems like they're a little more stable within the game.
Hmm.
But as they withdraw and, like you said, become more depressed or fail to be vulnerable with others, then they become more apathetic. And that's
Right.
when they abstract. And that's what you see with Jax too, is
Hmm.
as he leans more into apathy and decides that nothing matters. I don't care about this. I should have never cared about this. I should have never opened up, and starts to close himself off. He starts to have glitches himself and starts to dissociate and then ends up abstracting.
Yeah. And I think that that was kind of what I noticed the most from him was just the level
Hmm.
of disassociation and how that aligns with the people around him where like someone pointed out that like he like denies Ribbit and he starts isolating Ribbit and then she abstracts so then he has further guilt because he did want to reestablish that connection and it is like the ultimate theme of like sometimes you don't have enough time to forgive someone and like or have
Hmm.
someone
It's
forgive
so
you
difficult too
like
because it's
yeah.
Ribbit was a character that had abstracted before we entered the game with Pomni,
Hmm.
or I keep saying game, enter the circus with Pomni, and Ribbit was close with, uh, was it Kaufmo is the
Yeah,
one
I
that
believe
there
so.
was a funeral. Yeah, Kaufmo is the one there was a funeral for, and also Jax Kaufmo and Ribbit were close, and Jax opens up about his past to Ribbit, and in that moment, then Jax ends up kind of fearing that
Yeah.
vulnerability, and then quickly like ends their relationship, and this
Hmm.
causes Ribbit to end up becoming very depressed and withdrawing from the group quite a lot and leading to her own abstraction. So yeah, you're right. Then there is all this guilt associated with that for Jax.
Yeah. And so I kind of always like he was more interesting on like what he meant for the overall discussion. And also like it was sad because I
Mhm.
enjoyed him because Pomni enjoyed him. Like Pomni was a good self-insert character overall because she's dealing with a lot of frustrations that I think we all think we'd be feeling. And
Pomni
Pomni,
is a very great character because Pomni is very open-minded to what the other characters are and how they are interacting with others. Because I think, and I think if I were to come into like this type, not necessarily this type of situation, into a situation where I was witnessing somebody being awful to someone like Gangle, I don't know that I would react as kindly to that character. But Pomni
yeah.
very much reacts with kindness and giving people benefit of the doubt. And
Yeah.
I think that that's a really interesting way to approach others. Like, well, we don't know the whole story. We don't know the background here. I guess we're going to just see how it goes. And I can be partners with them. It'll be okay, even if there's a little trepidation.
Well, that's like Pomni's also like we talked about um Ragatha, and Ragatha has like a little bit of toxic positivity. And we find out like later that like she has a lot of friends, and she came from a very rich and pampered back life, and she kind of
Hmm.
like home life, and she kind of pushed that all away because she didn't like what her family was doing in the world, and she wanted to be a force of good in the world. And like Ragatha comes on very strong with Pomni because she's like, "Oh, a new friend. I really want to be friends with her." And Pomni like wants to be friends with her, but also has like a very good self-identity in a way where she's just like, "Yeah, I totally want to be friends, but also I'm new here and I'm not gonna like just believe everything or I want to experience
Yeah.
things." And so like I'm probably not gonna be positive all
She's
the
not someone
time.
who needs to like attach herself to one person. She
Yes.
feels comfortable moving between groups and kind of getting to know others and doesn't feel like she needs the security blanket of one person, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, and not like me. Couldn't be me. You're my security blanket, Laura.
I was just saying, I was just thinking honestly, like you were my security blanket all throughout college, where
Like,
I'd go to any event and be like, "Where's Hannah? Oh, she's over there. Okay, I'm gonna go stand over there by her because I
uh,
can't have a conversation."
I just had always had like small friend groups where I was like, they can't overlap unless it's like one friend from high school who came to all of our parties. But most of my
Mhm.
friends were like very much like separate. Because I was like, well, I want to hang out with you, but I only want to hang out in groups of four. Like any group bigger than four made me anxious.
I
So
think I've talked
like,
about this on the podcast before, but my therapist and I had talked about this before, where there's family groups, is internal family systems, is what it's called when you like see yourself in different ways. And I think that that's fascinating because like I see myself in different ways in different situations or whatever, but that sounds like almost like a projecting, and it might be the same thing. Psychologists tune in, um, email us, let me know if my analysis is correct. But this almost, you talking about that almost seems like, because I think a lot of people do this where they have different groups of friends or different people that this is my friend that I do this with, or this is
yeah.
my friend that I want to do this with. And I think that that almost seems like a outward projection of sorts of internal family systems.
That's probably true. Like,
I do it too to
no,
an
yeah.
extent. I don't have as many friends, but I do I do it too to an extent.
Uh, but no, so like Pomni is a good character. And Pomni is just kind of like a little bit self-actualized, which like she seems self-actualized like from the get-go, where she's like, well, I'm an
Yep.
accountant, but I know that I enjoyed YouTube and like going into
Hmm.
these like empty places with my friends, and like
Hmm.
she's just very chill throughout it, which also lends itself to her like being willing to talk to NPC
Yep.
characters, being willing to treat them like humans, and like being willing to be like, yeah, I want to be friends with Ragatha, but that doesn't mean that I
Hmm.
can't be friends with Jax. And like we're all stuck here for a really long time, so
And she is very
why,
much one that immediately kind of leans into, we have to develop some sort of community here.
Yes.
And where the others, I think, are more and which they've been there longer, so they've been maybe burned more by the AI, but they are less able, I shouldn't say less able, they're slightly less willing to immediately jump on board with, we need to develop community because that's the way out of this is,
Right.
or way through this. I shouldn't say out of this.
But I liked like so like seeing all the characters through Pomni was helpful because
Hmm.
like she had empathy for Jax, so I think I probably had a
Hmm.
little bit more empathy for Jax. Um, and like Ragatha was interesting. I would feel like she's kind of like one of the more surface level characters because she's more like just positivity in the world and like what it means to protect yourself. Like there's a good discussion. She has, I forget which character she has it with, but she talks about like
Kinger,
Kinger. Oh yeah, and
I
she's
think.
like, yeah, it is with Kinger, where she's like, I think I messed up with Pomni. She wanted to be a part of my group, but I didn't want to leave you with Jax, and I just don't want her to be mad at me. And Kinger's like, hey, like if someone can't give us what we need, we also have to recognize when that's not a good friendship or a good moment either.
Hmm.
And it was very beautiful, and like, I
Kinger has those really philosophical moments though in the dark, and which is also a funny like way to portray that, like you have some of your best moments and best ideas in your darkest places, if that makes
yeah,
sense. And I really appreciated what Kinger brought to the table because we have this person who, when put in the spotlight, isn't able to quote unquote come to the table or perform, you know what I mean, in the ways
right.
that are always needed for the group. But when he's put in the dark, he's able to really do well. And we learn
Yeah.
a lot about him and how supportive he can be and how insightful he can be and
Well, at
how
one time he was there with
effective.
his wife. Like he's been there for
He
a very
lost his
long time.
wife
Yeah.
too in the circus. So he's dealing with a lot of PTSD and trauma as well.
No, yeah, I really liked Kinger and his like
King
I
was
like
one of
your
my
view of
favorites,
like what
honestly.
your that tracks so hard. But like because the darkness I like where you're like, oh, the darkness is where we have our best thoughts. So it's like, and it led to like beautiful zingers. Like there's a bucket on my head. I don't think you want me to take it off. He also like fascinated me because I could not get over the thought of like we all know he lives in his little blanket fort in the middle of the room and it's dark in there. So it's like Kinger, every time he closes the door, is having the most philosophical discussions in his head, and then everyone opens up the door and he immediately forgets them.
Yep.
Like that's so sad. Um, but Kinger is one of the more inspiring characters. We found out that he
Hmm.
worked on the AI, so he got to like see, and it's pretty dark where he's like talking about like,
Hmm.
hey, it was my buddy. He had all these like crazy ideas of what he thought AI should be able to do, and this was like his first discussion on it, and yeah, it wasn't great, you know.
Hmm.
And he has been there for so long, but he hasn't like abstracted because he does seem to have a little bit of peace in the world or like thoughts of his wife and things like that. So,
Hmm.
um, I will say that my favorite character is probably Zooble. I really loved Zooble.
Zubul was great. Honestly, I liked a lot of the characters.
Yeah,
I think I honestly think Gangle was great.
yeah.
I think Kinger was maybe my favorite just because of that supportive voice that he offered to a lot of the other characters. And I think just seeing someone who's been in it for so long be supportive and have really inspiring moments like that was inspiring in a time when it's like, I need to be inspired. I need some happiness.
I need a
So,
little bit of happiness in my life.
yeah, I
No,
did like that, but I totally am on board with Zubul being a favorite.
yeah,
Really
because Zubul was, I mean, Zubul is everything I wish I could be in the character where she's like so chill and cool. And then you find out that she's
that
just like,
stands up
or
for
they,
themselves
they stand up for themselves. They're so like cool and suave and they just own a
and stands
bar in
up
the
for
real
others too.
world. Like, and like that's the thing is like they stand up for others in this very specific way of like, they kind of, they get a connection to Gangle and there is
Well,
like
I almost felt like this was like Zubul is almost in love with
Yeah.
Gangle.
Well, I think that that's heavily hinted at because Jax in his nightmare has Zubul
Hmm.
screaming at him that
Hmm.
he killed the only person that they've ever loved.
Hmm.
And so I do think that there is a romance between them. Now, I'm also somebody where I'm like, romance means lots of different things to lots of different people, but
Yeah.
Zubul did objectively ask to have body parts that could have sex. So,
Hmm.
like,
Hmm.
um, but I really enjoyed Zubul. I thought they were kind of the deepest voice, like the strongest voice in any room they were in,
Yeah.
while also
They're the ones
dealing.
they're the one that also was like requesting like we want to have a say in what goes on here. They really
Mhm.
pushed the suggestion box, which ultimately I think is one of the precursors to a lot of the things that happen in the show is that push for the suggestions and being able to participate in the adventures. And then at the end they get to participate more and have more free will.
Yeah. Well, and the suggestion box was such an interesting way to look at AI because, like, AI looked at their brain scans and was like, well, this is the way that all of these people will have enjoyment. And it really failed to see that, like, failed to see in his own way of people don't always have to enjoy an activity to enjoy the being with the people around them who are
Yeah.
having deeper enjoyment out of it. Like was recently talking to my husband about this because he makes jokes that I won't let him go mini golfing, and I'm like, if you want to go mini golfing, I will enjoy mini golfing with you, even though it is not an
Mm.
activity I would ever sign up for on my own time.
Mhm.
That's what love is, and I think that that is like the suggestion box of like, yes, there were different levels of affection, and there was also like a lot of vulnerability where people were like, "You didn't like softball? I like softball." Like,
That was a little crushing where Ragatha was like, "Don't we all want to do softball again?" And then for Pomni to be like, "Actually, I didn't really care for the softball too much," and for them to all be like. I didn't really mind the fast food gangle. I thought that the fast food thing was kind of nice.
It's so funny because like that's also just like video games though, where it's like, yeah,
Yeah,
I would rather cook or run a restaurant than
yeah.
play softball. But at the end of it, you saw that like Ragatha does get to play softball again. There
Hmm.
is more like, but I think that's the point of like, if you're trying
And they're willing
to,
to lean into each other more and be
yeah,
more willing to go on adventures with each other.
but like, I think Zubal's the first character who's a little bit more, not just outspoken, but willing to push for new things and to push for
Yes.
change in ways that are
Mhm.
effective. And like,
As Zubul is for sure a catalyst because Zubul is like the only one that seems to have any sort of pushback and that Kane
yeah,
seems concerned about because at the
yes.
same time, any of the other ones having any kind of pushback, it seems like that immediately leads to them abstracting somehow.
Hmm.
Zubul is not doing that. Zubul still somehow remains stable within themselves and in the circus and still brings about positive change.
Well, and I think a little bit of their stuff is because like they they do have a lot of identity moments where they're constantly
Hmm.
thinking about their own identity, but it's self-reflection in a way that I think most people who abstracted aren't self-reflecting. Like they're stuck in their own twists and turns and they're
And I
trying
think
to
it gets into
avoid
what you were
it.
saying earlier about them being non-binary, that they've likely had a lot of thoughts and conversations about this, which leads them to be very stable in having
Yes.
these types of conversations.
Exactly. So I do think like that is purposeful, but it also made them some of the more interesting characters because I think that that's just not a way that people talk about. Like,
Hmm.
I think right now there's a huge focus on the positivities of like having non-binary people or having trans people, and I agree with all of them. But it's also one of those where it's like, yeah, that is, but like non-binary people and trans people get to be depressed or they get to have
Yeah.
complicated emotions about their own personhood because like, guess
I think
what?
there was a really good like yin and yang of that though
Yeah.
in this show because we have those two characters in Zubul and Jax who are dealing with different queer identities in
Yep.
really complicated ways that are sometimes really positive and can be really awesome, even though they're not perfect people.
Right. And it makes like the end even like happier when you find out that like Jax found Zubal's bar
Mhm.
and he hangs out there with a community of friends that he's
The
made who
Jax in the real world.
yeah, Jax in the real world is hanging out in like Zubal in the real world's bar that they
Mhm.
made as a safe place for
It's a
people. And
safe
it's
place
like,
for
oh,
people.
Jax found a safe place.
Hmm.
And that made me happy because like again,
Yeah.
this is a snapshot, and maybe this is why I also felt a different type of way about Jax of like this is a snapshot of Jax at his worst moment and the trajectory he had when he put on whatever, console he put on and got the brain scan. Like that is a very tumultuous person who went in there
Mhm.
and went into a world where nothing matters and you don't have any identity or space of your own.
That's also an interesting thing that I didn't think about, Hannah, when I was thinking about like you pointing that out that like any given day that you enter, like you and I, Hannah, are dealing with like different moods and different levels than we were a week ago or a month ago
Hmm.
or a year ago. So the way that our brains are scanned today, we're going to look at things and be more or less accepting of things today versus a week ago or whatever
Right.
moment in time. Yeah, that's a really interesting thing. I didn't think about that.
And so like Jax in the real world, it feels like he did move on in a way and he did find this community and
He's
he
had
is like
growth.
doing well. And it's because like he grew in a world where these changes like do matter. And I think they're finding that the digital circus matters, but it matters in a different type of way because they're
Hmm.
now here forever and there's no going back on that.
Yeah.
So it's it's interesting.
Hmm.
And then Gangle is just so sad and just wants to run her restaurant. And
Yeah.
I don't know. Like you said, she's a little bit more on the nose than the other characters.
Gangle is the most on the nose to me
Yeah.
and is a little, I don't want to say less deep because I do think that this is a character that's dealing with a lot in terms of their mental illness. But I, I do think that this is the one that's they didn't maybe pay as much attention to trying to make more with this character. They were kind of like, here's what it is. It's depression.
It is
You
just
can't tell
severe
from the
depression.
masks.
And you and I are sitting there and been like, well, I've been depressed for
And I'm
years.
like,
I don't know,
you know what?
like
I live this. I don't need it shown to me constantly with the masks and everything. And then we have the working in customer service, like, like, yeah, I don't need this shown to me. Live it. So maybe it was just too close to home.
yeah, I don't know. Like it's always hard because it is literally just about masking. Like that's pretty much it.
It
But I
really
do
is mental illness and masking. And yeah,
I do think that their most important and most interesting part came after Jack's abstracted and they get
yes.
to have deep discussions with their life partner Zubul
Hmm.
about what it means to Gangle specifically and how she does not have to forgive him or forget the harmful things he did to her. Because, like, she lists off some pretty dark stuff. And if
Yeah.
you're suffering from depression and someone bullies you that hard, it's going to have an effect on you. And she has that right. So, like, I think
It's
her,
also interesting too from the standpoint of the way that Gangle's avatar is portrayed from like a ribbon, a flimsy ribbon that falls apart at times.
Mhm.
How it's it, I don't know if I'm looking into this too much, how strong that character is when we're talking in terms of like abstraction. When you're
Yeah,
saying we do have this character that's bullying Gangle constantly, and how she's still able to be strong and put herself back together consistently and
yeah,
not have thoughts of abstracting or
right.
isolating more, because when you're depressed it's so easy to self-isolate. Like isolation is like the first thing you start to do, be like, I
Yeah,
don't want to go anywhere, I can't be around people, people don't understand. And for her to continue to participate in the adventures, and granted that there are other characters that reach out to them or reach out to her, but I do think it's kind of interesting from the standpoint of like portraying a character that's very flimsy, but portraying a lot of strength.
yeah. Because when I was watching her through her struggles, there was never a moment where I thought she was going to abstract. And I
Hmm.
also like
Same.
at the beginning had put her into like a small bucket with Kinger, where it felt like those two were kind of like the quote unquote
Fragile characters.
fragile characters who were unwell, you know?
Hmm.
Um, but then as time went on, like Kinger had his self-realizations in the dark, but like Gangle finds community and like has a voice for herself. And she is
Hmm.
able to do that. So like it's different arcs for characters that I felt like were very similar. And I was always
Yeah.
shocked when like they were pairing up and you found out that Kinger and Gangle weren't put together by default,
Yeah.
you know. Um, where it's like, oh no, Jax always pairs with Gangle, and I'm like, he did? Like, because that was
Hmm.
very shocking information for me because it just didn't feel right, but it was
Because you need,
interesting.
he wanted to be
He
abusive in
wanted
that
to, yeah, he
situation
wanted to
and
torture her.
manipulate her and put himself in a position of power.
Yeah, but it's interesting.
So Hannah, your favorite character was Zubul. Any favorite moments or final thoughts?
I I really liked I did really for like one of the least important episodes. The Haunted Manor got me on so many levels. Because it was so funny to see Jax just miserable when it's like, you chose the pacifist route. Like that episode got me. I don't know why. It was funny. Like, and then
There were a
you,
lot of funny moments actually, and I liked in the softball game a lot when they had their evil counterparts.
and Jax's was nice and everyone else was terrible. They stole her eye, Zubal's eye.
Uh-huh.
Like,
Did you
but
use
no,
those as a softball?
the manner was good because it was very much blocked like an episode of TV where like at
Yeah.
the beginning they were practicing holding their breath and then it paid off in the end because like I was like, oh, they'll
Hmm.
have to hold their breath when they get here. And then you have like this ghost man who was like talking from a speaker. They're like, how was he be recording this if he was
Yeah.
dead? And then later you have his wife upstairs and she goes, I hope your friends didn't run into my husband. He tends to monologue. And I was like, that was very funny. Like it's just very funny. And like that was my favorite. I think that's when I liked Subal the most is like talking about loathing
Yeah.
their own digital body. Like
Yes.
it was just very interesting. So I
Yeah,
think that
I
that
thought
was
that that
probably one of
was
my favorite episodes.
Yeah, I think that that was a really standout moment. Just having Zubul talk about their body and like the dysmorphia that they have surrounding their body. I thought that that was really interesting. I think I'm just going to be basic and say that I really enjoyed like the last two episodes the best, where we start to get more information. And I especially kind of liked seeing them come to this realization that there was no getting out because they were brain scanned, and them kind of accepting, like, oh, we kind of already figured something like this was the case,
Yeah.
and dealing with the ramifications of that. So,
Yeah.
and honestly, it would have even been okay with me if there wasn't any kind of resolution for them, that like Kane doesn't come back and tell them this, if they had to just kind of sit with that, that their brain
Yeah.
scans. So, yeah,
I thought it was enough that you kind of got hinted at that they might be able to deal with the abstraction
yeah,
through their love and care for Jax. I did have the
hmm
thought of like they better be going in for those other people then. We better be
yeah,
dealing with everybody's trauma and not just that
hmm
one bully. Like,
yeah.
um, but overall, great. Honestly, great bring to the pod, Laura.
I
Thank
mean,
you.
how I just thought this show was very interesting. My coworker recommended it to me, and I was hooked, and I thought it was a really interesting show. So I would recommend it to people to watch, honestly.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting. Again, I feel like some of the AI discussions were a little too personified.
I
But
think that
other
we
than
need
that,
to be kind of watching what we're doing surrounding AI in general, and how much credit we're giving to AI. And
yeah.
we need to stop assuming that AI is the solution for everything, and that it is a person, and because it's going to be replacing people and taking our livelihoods and also all of our water. So stop using it, people.
Yeah, stop using. Yeah, it is taking all of our water and it is making people dumber. People have pointed
Hmm.
that out.
Yep.
And then the last time I
And
have
it's
to
not
hear.
ableist to suggest that we shouldn't be using AI. So don't even come at me.
Also, just like the amount of AI discussions I've had in my field where they're like, can we get AI to do that? And I'm like,
No,
no, because you still need a human to do most of the
use your brain.
work. No, we can't get AI to be
And
a
you know what?
whole new
Keep
human.
writing big words, authors. We demand it.
I love it.
Write those big words. I want them.
Well, Laura, thank you for another rousing episode of TV Tuesday
TV Tuesday.
discussing the amazing digital circus. There's
Go check it out
Pomni
on
and
YouTube,
Jazz.
people. I would recommend checking it out on YouTube. It's on Glitch.
Oh,
That is,
nice.
just search Amazing Digital Circus, it'll come up. But give them some
I
views
didn't
over there on
I didn't realize
YouTube.
you can get it on Netflix or YouTube.
Yep.
So, oh, well, yeah, I should have said that. Guys, go watch it over there.
Yep. Go watch it on YouTube. We've
Okay.
supported Netflix enough.
They got us for so many things. Also, good on Glitch for being like, no, we're gonna put the whole thing up on
Yeah.
our stuff too.
Yeah.
Um, that's awesome, and I support it wholeheartedly. I just didn't
For
know about
sure.
it. All right, y'all. Well, join us tomorrow to get back into Ba-dum Bum, the Year of the Dresden,
The Dresden
as
Files.
we will be covering the first 16 chapters of Small Favors. Ready for a snowball fight,
A
Laura?
small favor of
A
mine would
small favor.
be, could Michael be a more involved father?
No.
Please give me that small favor, Jim Butcher.
No, he has to go get the pizza,
He has to
Laura.
get pizza and be gone forever while his children
Yeah.
get attacked. But
Yeah.
oh well.
But
We'll
you can
talk about
also
it tomorrow.
follow us at OWWR Pod on Instagram, BlueSky, and TikTok, or check out what's going on over at ourpod.com.
Yep.
All
All right.
right.
And thanks for listening today.
Bye.
Bye.